Hello friends, it's Kristie Marcotte. I had so much fun using Paper Rose's Native Floral Collection, I decided I'm going to use another one. This is their Happy Days paper collection. The company is based in Australia, so they don't have American standard sizes. This is an A5 paper size, so it's a little under 6 inches and a little bit over 8 inches. I personally think it works out perfectly for American A2 size cards, since you can make 2 card backgrounds from 1 sheet of paper. There are 24 sheets of single-sided paper. You'll have 2 of each design. One of the patterns has a bunch of cut-aparts. I felt like some of the sentiments would work better for a planner or maybe a scrapbook versus cards, so I did end up with quite a few of those pieces left over. So I'll go ahead and get started with the first set of cards. For each of the sketches I use, I will be making 2 cards, but I'm only going to show the process of assembling one of them just to save on time. The first sketch I'm using is by Freshly Made Sketches. It's number 382. And if you are interested in any of the sketches I show, I share all of that information on my coordinating blog post, and that link is provided in the description box below. This first card is very simple. The butterfly paper is one of my favorites from the whole collection. So I wanted to make sure not to cover up a lot of the image. So I'm going to have that butterfly panel as the main feature. And then I'm just going to add one of the cut-aparts. This is so very lovely. I like to use a lot of solid colored cardstock to add layers to my cards. So for the background, I have that blue piece first, and then I layered it on this dark charcoal cardstock. It has a little bit of a pearlescent finish. I also layered up that sentiment, popped it up using some foam dimensional tape. And then just to add a little bit of sparkle and shine to this card, I'm using some pearls from Studio Katia. This is their Stormcloud color. I thought it matched really nicely with the pattern paper. So there is my finished card, and I did make 2 using this sketch. If you like to fussy cut out images, I think the butterflies and flowers would be really fun to do. I decided not to. I just went with the sentiments and the flowers on that cut apart sheet. So moving on to my next set of cards, this sketch is from Mojo Monday. It's number 539. For the background of my card, I selected a paper that has a bunch of circle images. Some of them are drawn in with some stripes, others have little polka dots, so I thought that one was a lot of fun. Even with the softer colors in that background paper, it's still on the busier side. So I wanted to make sure to not mix very many busy papers together. So for that narrow strip, I have these little tiny hearts all over it on a gray background. I just layered that using that gray cardstock. For the strip going across the card, I just used some solid pink cardstock. I'm using that same color to add for that first layered panel, and then also for this little banner that's in the upper left-hand corner. And since I love to add lots of sparkle to my cards, I'm using some Love from Lizi peel-off stickers. This is the clear iridescent pink color. So I just cut 2 pieces, and the one on the bottom, I just have a partial piece. There's a little gap in the center, but that's going to be covered up. So this is a great way to make those peel-offs last a little bit longer. Then I'm going to layer this whole panel on some more of that gray cardstock. Put the card front onto a card base, and then I'll start working on my sentiment box. It's hard to see in the video, but this circle is one of the pattern papers. It has a graph design in a light blue color. And I'll just layer that circle onto some dark blue cardstock. And then for that little area on the upper right-hand side of that circle die cut, I'm just going to add some scrap cardstock underneath, just so there isn't that noticeable dip. For the sentiment on my card, I used one of Paper Rose's sentiment dies. This is the word hugs. It does include the little outline, but I decided for this card it wasn't necessary. So I just cut it out of that same blue cardstock from that scallop circle. And I have 2 of the heart cut-aparts. Just going to glue those right above the sentiment. And then a finishing touch, I'm using some Nuvo Dream Drops. This is the Love Potion color. It matches really nicely with that pink. And I did just pull this off screen just to tap down those drops since I like them on the flatter side. But I felt like I needed a little more something in that sentiment circle, so I added some of Nuvo's crystal drops in the Morning Dew color. Just adds a subtle little detail. So moving on to the next set of cards, this is a sketch from Mojo Monday. It's number 536. For a lot of my cards in this video, I did end up doing a double matted layer for that background. So on this card I have black as the very background, and then I'm using some mirror cardstock for that next layer. I did cut a circle out of that mirror paper, and then I added another circle die cut just in some white cardstock. That way there wasn't going to be a gap on the card. For the main pattern paper of the card, I have this cute little design with some pink stripes and then little hearts and polka dots. And then I added a strip of this white and black polka dot paper. I'm using some more Love from Lizi peel-offs. This is the black glitter color. I'm trying to use some of the scraps since I always have all these little leftover pieces. So I just put one on both sides of that polka dot paper just to add a little bit of sparkle. And then I'll adhere this panel onto the double layered panel. Put my card front onto a card base, and then I can start working on the image. So here is that circle that I cut out of the background. I'm using one of Paper Rose's dies. This is the Leafy circle. Now this die does not cut out that outside circle, so it helps to either have it on maybe a square, or in this case I have it on that larger circle. That way I still have a little bit of frame of that circle going around the image. I used my piercing tool just to pop out the negative sides. And now I'm just holding onto this piece with my tweezers. It's very delicate. Just put some liquid adhesive on the back side, and then I'm going to adhere it onto another circle die cut. And this is on some white pearlescent paper. Then using some scrap cardstock, I'm just going to put a piece on the upper and lower area of the circle, just where it's going over that thin strip of the polka dot paper, so there isn't that noticeable dip. So once I have that adhered, I can start working on the sentiment. This is the word hello, another one of Paper Rose's dies, and this time I did cut out the little outline frame. So the hello is cut out of some white glitter paper. Just adhere those together. But before I adhere that to the card, I'm going to stamp the word friend. This is from the Beautiful Words stamp set by Paper Rose. I just used some black ink, stamped it underneath the word hello. And now I can adhere this. I did put some thin foam squares on the left-hand side where it goes off of the circle, just to keep everything nice and level. And then I decided to add a couple small banners in the upper left-hand corner. So I have one cut out of this pink paper and then the other cut out of black. I just have the black one a little bit shorter and I just overlap them slightly. And one final finishing touch, I'm going to add some clear drops, and these are also by Studio Katia. And I'm using their embellishment wand to pick these up. It makes it so simple to work with small embellishments. And I will provide links in the description box for all of the products that I use in this video. So there is my finished card. It has a lot of sparkle and shine. Now moving on to the next set of cards. This sketch is from OWH. It's number 218. Another favorite pattern paper is this beautiful floral design. I chose this sketch since I knew I'd be able to feature that lovely pattern paper in that larger rectangle box. For the background paper, I have a pre-embossed cardstock. This is by Basil. The color matches really nicely with the paper collection. Then I used some more of that heart pattern paper for the strip that goes across the card, layering all of this in a dark gray cardstock. I added a scallop border across the top portion of that heart paper just to add a little bit of softness to the card. And then I also put one of Love from Lizi's peel-offs on the top of that border. Not going to see very much of it since it's going to be covered up by this floral paper. Now before I adhere this floral panel, I'm going to put some scrap cardstock on the upper portion, just trying to keep everything nice and level. And I did end up adding 2 pieces of cardstock. I did the one first, laid it against the card, and then I just kind of run my hand over it to see if I can feel that dip. And then I felt like I needed just one more. For the sentiment, I'm using the Cut Apart So Kind. I'm going to layer this on some of the gray cardstock. And I'm going to put just a tiny scrap piece of cardstock on the left-hand side where the word So goes off of the edge. And some finishing touches, I'm using some more Love from Lizi peel-offs. This is some of her new design. These are the mini circles in the silver mirror color, and I'm using the smallest size. And these are really tiny. And generally I can peel these off just fine and work with them, but I recently cut my nails, so I was struggling with that. So not a problem, I just used my piercing tool to help place those. And I decided to also use some of the hearts. So she has circles, stars, and hearts. Again, I'm using the smallest size, and I'm taking 2 of the hearts, overlapping them just slightly and putting them next to the word kind. And then just some finishing touches, I'm using some Nuvo glitter drops. This is the white blizzard color. I'm adding it to the outside petals, just on that largest flower, and then just sprinkling a few around that background. And there is my finished card. I really like the soft pink and gray colors together. Now moving on to the next set of cards. This sketch is from Freshly Made Sketches. It's number 294. For the background of my card, I'm using this wood panel in a very light gray, mostly white background. And then for this rectangle piece, there's a pink paper that has a bunch of white frames. At first, I wasn't sure how I was going to use this paper. Then I decided I would have it as the background for my image and sentiment. I'm using some more of that rose platinum mirror paper just for those 2 strips on the very outside edge. I didn't want to cut a full panel as indicated in the sketch, since you're not going to see most of it, so I just have those 2 narrow strips. And then using some of that gray cardstock, I have the piece going behind the card. And again, I could have just had some small pieces since you don't see all of it, but I did decide just to have that whole piece since it's just some gray cardstock that I have on hand. For the sentiment, I'm using the word beautiful, and then I'm also using the coordinating stamp set. So I cut out the word beautiful using that rose mirror paper, and I'm going to adhere it onto this white pearlescent paper for that shadow. I've already stamped the rest of the sentiment. This is Just the Way You Are. I'm going to add a small piece of cardstock on the right hand side where it's going off of the edge. So I'll adhere the stamped sentiment first. And then before I attach the word beautiful, I'm going to add some images. So these are the Dandelion dies by Paper Rose. I cut them out using some glitter cardstock that was left over from a Love from Lizi add-on. I thought the color matched beautifully with this card. I'm going to adhere the largest one first, and I just put some thin foam squares on the back side. I'm going to tuck these underneath the left-hand side of the sentiment. So I'm just fiddling with the flowers. I'm trying to get the stems to be together. I'm going to trim 2 of them down just a little bit. One of them was hanging off the card. And then I'm going to pop up the word beautiful using some foam squares. I'm not putting any of them underneath the E and the A on the word, since that's where the stems are going to be. So I'm trying to nestle them together, those stems. So remove the backing on the foam squares. Put a tiny bit of glue where the stems are going to be. Just trying to hold those in place. And then just a finishing touch, I'm going to add some iridescent tiny bubbles, and these are by Studio Katia. I'll put a few of them around the sentiment and then also some around the dandelions. I'm really loving Studio Katia's bling. These tiny little bubbles and pearls add such a lovely touch to the card. So there is my finished card, and this is one of my favorites. But do let me know which card is your favorite. So moving on to the next set of cards, this is a sketch from Mojo Monday. It's number 535. So now I'm moving away from the pink colors, and I'm going to have a blue colored card to have this fun blue and white stripe paper for the background, adding some more of this pink heart paper. This has come in very handy to tie in with some of the other pattern papers. For that smaller rectangle, I have that blue and white graph paper. It's a very subtle design. So before I attach it, I did put some scrap cardstock on the right-hand side. I'll attach my card front onto a card base before I start working on the sentiment and images. I have a circle die cut. Well, I have two circle die cuts, one in some white pearlescent paper and then the other in this same blue cardstock. Just going to add that scrap cardstock on that upper right hand area where it goes off of the other layers. I do end up doing two pieces. And since no one's going to see that scrap cardstock, it doesn't have to be cut perfectly. I just put it there to prevent that little dip. So now I'm going to work on this sentiment. I'm using the word smile, and this is another paper rose die. I'm not going to use the outline, it does include it. Just adhere it to the card using some liquid adhesive. Add a little bit for the dot to the eye. And then I have several different cut aparts. So I have some blue flowers. I have the rest of the sentiment. So this is Be Yourself, Smile. I searched through my stamps for a small word and, but I couldn't find one. So I decided it would still be fine with just the Be Yourself, Smile. So I'm going to pop up the flowers. I'm not going to put any foam tape where the flowers are going to be on top of that circle though. I'll just use a little bit of liquid adhesive where it touches that circle die cut. And since some of these flowers are pretty tiny, I did have to cut those foam squares real small. And then for the two hearts, I'm just going to layer those and put them above the sentiment, more on the right hand side. And to finish off the card, I'm using some more of the gray pearls by Studio Katia. Put two of them in the upper right hand corner and just one of them by the flowers. And there are my finished cards. I think this blue and gray looks really lovely together. So now moving on to the next set of cards. This sketch is by OWH. It's number 169. Wanted to make sure to use some more of that beautiful butterfly paper. I thought this sketch would work nicely to feature those butterflies in that large circle image on the sketch. For the background of the card, I have a 4 by 4 inch panel with that blue and white graph paper. And I have some of this blue and white stripe paper for the strip that goes across the card. I'm just going to add a scallop border using some solid cardstock. I'll bring in some silver peel-offs. I'm going to put one along each side of that stripe paper. For that top piece, I didn't have to have a full strip because the middle is going to be covered up. So I'll just adhere this to my card. And for that smaller strip on the bottom, it's just some white pearlescent paper. Not going to see very much of it, but it still adds a lovely shine. Now for the circle, since it is going to go off of the left-hand side, I'm just going to add some adhesive on the back. I will put some scrap cardstock on the upper portion where it goes over that stripe paper. Put some more ATG on the back, adhere this to my card, and then I'll just flip it over, use my scissors, and trim that so it's flush to the left-hand side. I'm using the Hello die and also the outline. I cut out the word hello using some of that pink cardstock. It'll bring out some of the pink in the butterflies. Layer that on the blue cardstock. And I'll add just a small piece of scrap cardstock underneath that right hand L. Just that little area where it goes off of those other layers. Use some liquid adhesive to adhere it to my card. And I'm using one of the cut aparts. There's a little banner. This is a light blue color and it has 3 little hearts. And then just one final finishing touch, I'm adding some more of those gray pearls. Put 2 of them underneath the circle and then 1 above the sentiment. Then I wanted to add a little bit of shine, so I'm using some glossy accents and adding it to the word hello. This is a great way to add just a little extra shine. And since I didn't have any specialty paper in this color, I thought this would be a perfect way to finish off the card. So I do make sure to let this dry for a full day before I put anything on top of it. Sometimes it has a little bit of tackiness to it. Just a tiny bit of the glossy accents go off of that pink cardstock, so I just wipe that away. So there are my finished cards, and I love this butterfly paper. I will be using more of it on another card coming up. So moving on to my next set of cards, this sketch is by Sketch Saturday. It's number 322. Using some more of that beautiful flower paper and then also that wood grain paper for the background. So again, this card has lots and lots of layers, but overall it's going to be very flat. So this would be easily mailed without using any extra postage. I decided to round the bottom 2 corners on all of the background pieces. Now I'll just attach these layers together. I have that pink cardstock with the pre-embossed polka dots. And one thing I love about this sketch, it has those 3 thin strips in the background. And the first time I saw this sketch, I immediately thought it was designed to use with Love from Lizi peel-offs. So that's what I'm going to add to my card. I have the silver design, just putting 3 of them along that lower portion. Now, even though a lot of the peel-off is going to be covered up, I still wanted to use 1 full strip. So that lower one I did all the way across the card. That way I had a guideline to get the other 2 strips straight. I could have used a ruler and a pencil, but I usually just eyeball most of the stuff on my card anyway. I used a darker pink cardstock for that small banner that's on the left-hand side of this floral panel. Made sure to round the corners of my card base. And then for the sentiment, I'm using another one of the cut aparts. This is So Very Special. And I'm just cutting some small fishtails on both sides, and I'll adhere it right underneath the image. And then to finish off the card, I'm using some more of Love from Lizi peel-offs. These are the mini hearts. I have the silver color, and I'm just putting 3 of them around the sentiment. So there is my finished card, and I do have 2 using this same sketch. Now moving on to my next set of cards. The card sketch is Freshly Made Sketches, number 419. One of the things I really like about this sketch is that crooked element with the larger paper. So I'm going to have this striped paper with the hearts as that featured element. I do still like to have those matted layers, so I'm just going to attach it to some black cardstock. And instead of trying to cut out that shape, I find the easiest way is to just adhere it to the background paper, have it go off of the edge, flip over the paper, and then trim away the extra. And since I didn't put a lot of ATG on the back, I do have those loose corners. So I'm just going to peel those up and add some liquid adhesive to hold those in place. Now I'll go ahead and add this panel onto a layer of black cardstock. And then just to add a little more detail to the top of the card, I'm going to put some twine. So this is some pink and white twine that I have in my stash. Put some ATG on the back, wrap the twine around the card 3 times. And then just to make sure the ends stay put, I'm going to put a piece of score tape over both of those. I can peel those away, put some more ATG on the back, and then I'll put my card front onto a card base. I am going to put a little bit of liquid adhesive on the very top just to make sure that top area doesn't pull away from the card base, since it does have a little bit of thickness underneath with the extra twine. And I just slipped another piece of twine underneath and tied my bow. For the sentiment, I'm using the word beautiful. So I have this cut out of some dark pink cardstock. In the background, I used some more of the black cardstock. This has some really nice contrast with the two colors. Just glue those together. And then I've already gone ahead and stamped out the rest of the sentiment. So the whole sentiment is going to be, you are beautiful just the way you are. And the little stamp sentiments don't really stand out a whole lot, so I will be adding some black cardstock to those. But first, I'm going to pop up the word beautiful, just using some thin foam squares. I'll adhere the die cut word first, trying to make sure to get it straight. Sometimes that can be tricky when you have a crooked element in the background. And now I'll go ahead and attach the stamp sentiments to some black cardstock. And I'm just leaving a very thin border, just enough so it stands out against that background. And I could have used my paper trimmer to cut these out, but it's easy enough just to follow along that straight line. So for the other two parts of the sentiment, I'm just going to glue those down with some liquid adhesive. Just going to nestle the UR right above the word beautiful. And now to finish off the card, I'm going to use some more of the Iridescent Tiny Bubbles by Studio Katia. Just sprinkling a few of them around the sentiment. And there is my finished card. For the second card, I didn't have enough of that heart stripe paper, so I used some of the floral paper instead and then just layered all of it with some gray cardstock. Now moving on to my final set of cards. This sketch is by OWH. It's number 146. I'm using that circle paper for the background, and since I still have some more of the butterfly paper, it fit perfectly with this sketch since that piece is only 2 inches wide. For the wider piece that goes across the card, I'm just using some solid cardstock. I don't want to have too many pattern papers mixed together. I am adding some silver peel-offs to add a little extra shine. Go ahead and layer this on some black cardstock first, and then I'm going to add it to the pink cardstock. Generally, I would do it the other way around, the pink and then the black, but having that black paper behind the pattern paper really added an extra pop of contrast. For this small banner that goes in the background, I used some more of that graph paper in the blue and white. Just going to adhere my card front onto a card base. And then before I adhere the butterfly paper, I'm just going to put that scrap piece of cardstock on the upper area, keeping everything level. And for the sentiment on the card, I'm using one of the cut-aparts. This is Hello, My Love. And I decided to cut off the words My Love. I donate a lot of my cards, and it's always easier to have general sentiments. I just put some adhesive on the back and tucked the very end underneath that black layer. Now to finish off the card, I'm going to add a couple of banners in the upper right-hand corner. I have one cut out in black and then the other in the same blue cardstock. Just layer them slightly. And since I want to keep this card nice and flat, I'm going to use some of Love from Lizi's mini circle peel-offs. I'm putting a couple of them on the banners, a few in the lower corner, and then just one underneath the sentiment. Now it'll stay nice and flat, easy for mailing. So there is my finished card, and I did make 2 using this sketch. Now here's just a quick recap of the 20 cards I made using Paper Rose Happy Day paper collection. I didn't completely use up all of the paper. I still had one full sheet and then just a handful of scraps left. So I might end up using those at another time. If you are interested in this paper collection or any of the products that I used in this video, I have provided links in the description box below. These are affiliate links, and I do make a small commission when you make a purchase through those links at no additional cost to you. The companies offer those affiliate links to creators as a thank you for featuring their products. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a wonderful day.